Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today is going to be the first episode of a potential new series on my channel. If this video does well, this is definitely something I can make more of because it's something I'm actually really interested in. But I do want to see how well these videos are going to perform. I have no idea how well they're going to do, if people want to see more content like this or not. If they do, like I said, I'm down. I think this is going to be super fun. But if this video flops, this might be the first and last episode of it. But this is going to be pretty much me looking forward to this next offseason, running through all the possibilities in the offseason for a team, looking at what they have on their roster right now, what the reasonable expectations and options are for them, and what they could possibly do to become a better team in this next offseason, heading into 2022 and into the future. You know, it's GM, Germ, whatever you want to call it. But in this first episode today, we're going to be rebuilding TSM. So definitely drop a like if you guys do enjoy this video. Again, I'm trying to see if you guys want this stuff or not. So if this is something you like, if you enjoyed this video, show that support, show that love, and I will definitely make this on tons of different teams. I'll do it. You know, I'm down. Also, subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content, and consider checking out my Patreon, patreon.com/IamGerm. With that being said, let's get right into this. So, first up with each team, you know, if I'm going to do this, I want to start out by just looking at our players and seeing who we have, who's under contract, who's going to be a free agent, all of that stuff. And when you look at TSM, I guess first I just want to say we're looking at TSM because they're a huge team, very popular, big fan base, but also they just got eliminated from Worlds kind of unexpectedly. Worlds contention, you know, it is officially the off season for TSM now. They're a team, again, huge history, huge organization, huge fan base, but they also came across some money during this past season with this TSM FTX deal. So I think it makes the offseason very interesting for them. And I think they also have a ton of different ways they could go. And so I think it should be fun. I think it could kind of be a cool team to look into. And I'm sure a team a lot of people have a ton of different opinions about. But the cool thing here with TSM is that everyone's under contract. Everyone is coming back. Huni is signed until 2022. Spica is signed until 2022. Power of Evil until 2022. Sword Art until 2022. The only person they actually have locked up longer than that is Lost, and that's kind of funny, you know. A spoiler alert, I do expect Lost to be gone, and yeah, everyone else still has another year. So TSM has the options of running it back, seeing if this team could build off of each other, but they also just have, you know, you're going to reach out to a bunch of free agents. You're going to, even people you're interested in signing, you're going to try and sign them, but if they don't want to come to you, then there's not really much you can do. So it is good for TSM that they have these people signed, because worst case scenario, they reach out to a bunch of free agents, they reach out to a bunch of teams, nobody wants to come. They'll still have the same team from last season that finished first place in the regular season and was a single game away from Worlds, which wouldn't be good, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I definitely think they're going to be making a ton of changes. One actually really interesting thing I did want to point out here is the fact that Bjergsen is actually, his contract's up in 2021. That's when his contract expires. You know, he signed that as a player and then just kind of became coach. I'm pretty sure he just carried over that same contract. So it'll be interesting. Is he going to re-sign? How did this year of coaching go for him? Did he like it? Did the organization like him? Does he want to sign a long-term deal as a coach? Does he want to sign a short-term deal as a coach? Does a team want to sign a short or long-term deal with him as a coach? I assume he'll be back. I think he did a fine job, but maybe he's not going to be coaching. You know, I don't know. I think he's going to be back, but just kind of an interesting thing to note there. Also, here is the North American and European free agent classes that the teams are going to be working with. This is obviously not TSM specific, but honestly, not looking too good here. In North America, we have Broxa, POB, Demonte, Smoothie, Acadian, Aframu, Jizuke, Dardoch, and Santorin. The only player that I really even care about there at all is Santorin. Jizuke, obviously pretty solid too. The NA free agents kind of suck. As far as EU free agents, Crownshot, Selfmade, Treats, Broken Blade, Kabe and Vander, Razor, Kyrit, Kaiser, and Karzi. Kind of interesting. Hilly, Bwippo, Patrick, Nuke Duck, Cries, Magic Felix. Way better free agents over in EU, but still not anything I'm too crazy excited about. So when I'm looking at TSM, they are an org who, you know, this team isn't what TSM would usually be historically. Historically, they have some of the best players in the league. They are usually one of the better teams in the league, but that's because they, you know, their history is Bjergsen. Their history is Double Lift. But overall, this team hasn't been a big spender. So they've had to kind of get players for cheap. They've had to, help build the brands and careers of players. And they've been just a place where people would want to come to play with Bjergsen. So now they're having to go into this new era where they don't have playing with Bjergsen or being the best team in North America as a tool they can use to get free agents anymore. But what they do have now is obviously this FTX money, so that does kind of change things. Whereas last offseason, they couldn't be as competitive when bidding for a lot of these players. Obviously, they went and spent a ton of money on Sword Art, which was, it seems like pretty much their entire free agent budget. But now in this next offseason, they should actually be a little bit more competitive. So I think that should be a little bit more interesting. When I'm looking at a lot of these players, I am building this roster under the assumption that Power of Evil is going to get his green card. That is a big rumor out there. So people are expecting him to be a resident next year. Also, Spica, maybe he leaves for the LPL, but I'm not really operating under that assumption. I'm really building around Spica as the mainstay on this roster. I think Hooney is replaceable, but I think if you end up with Hooney on the roster again next year, it's fine. He was third team All-Pro, but that's also without Alfari playing. So really, Hooney's maybe the fourth or fifth best top laner in the LCS, which if your goals are just to make it to Worlds, that's fine. But if your goals are to do well at Worlds, I really think you should be looking at better than that. I think we're going to be operating under the assumption that Lost is gone for sure. I think he's an LCS level 80 carry. I don't think he's a TSM level 80 carry. And then Sword Art, I do think they will be keeping just because I have him under such a big contract. I don't really think there's anything they can do otherwise. So let's take a look at what I came up with for some of my lineups. So if you just made me say, or you made me predict, what do I think the 2022 TSM roster is going to look like? This is before offseason, before rumors, before anything like that. This is what I would predict the lineup was going to be. This one right here. I would say the most likely lineup for TSM going into next year is Hooney, Spica, Power of Evil, Doggo, and Sword Art. Now, I think they're going to import an 80 carry for sure for Lost, and trying to guess who that 80 carry is going to be, you just kind of have to pick one. But I'm pretty sure Doggo is a free agent. I know he's going to be highly sought after. I know he's probably going to, be going to a big team somewhere. So it just kind of makes him a little bit likely. Again, I don't expect any changes to be made with Spica, Power of Evil, or Sword Art. And then bringing back Hooney, I think that's probably the most likely alternative. Overall, I think this TSM team would be better. Obviously, we'll see how well Spica continues to get better, how Sword Art does. I think getting a very, very good 80 carry like Doggo paired up with Sword Art would really unlock him, would really help TSM be a better team. Hopefully, if the meta is different next year with more control mages and mages in general, Power of Evil will be a little bit better. And then Hooney, again, if he's your worst player, which I think Hooney would be the worst player on this roster, your team's not going to be too poorly off. But also, I do think some other likely options in the top lane are Someday. There's some rumors about him going around. If Broken Blade does decide to go to 100 Thieves, Someday being out there, I think TSM would take a look at him. And then also Huanfeng, obviously the Chinese 80 carry who has some ties to Sword Art, would be another option for TSM as well. And I think that would be pretty likely to go into the 80 carry. So these are some lineups I could definitely see happening. Either of these top laners, either of these 80 carries. These are kind of the most likely for TSM. Now, also some very, very reasonable choices I see as possible for TSM. Like, I would not be shocked if any of these happen. I could see Broken Blade returning to TSM. Broken Blade is a free agent. He obviously enjoyed his time on TSM. It seems like he enjoyed his time in North America. And now that he left and went over to Europe, went over to Schalke, he's coming off a 10th place finish in Europe. So if TSM now offers him some big time FTX money, I could see BB coming back. And also, BB had a very, very good year in Europe where he is probably better than he was when he left TSM. And he left TSM pretty damn good. Just TSM didn't have any import slots left open. They had to get rid of him. They really didn't have a choice. So who knows if BB would want to come back? Who knows if he's going to be available to come back? There's going to be a big bidding war for Broken Blade. I think it's going to really depend on whether he wants to stay in Europe or stay in North America. But I would say Broken Blade coming back to TSM is a pretty reasonable expectation. Also, Tactical, I think, is actually a very, very interesting one that I think could happen. If TL does decide to keep Santorin and CoreJJ gets his green card, they're going to have an import slot open. I could see them importing an 80 carry, whether it's Doggo, whether it's Viper, whether it's Huanfeng, one of these names, a guy to pair up with CoreJJ, even a Korean 80 carry maybe, and that would make Tactical a free agent. And if Tactical is out on the market, I could see TSM going after him. And then also same thing with Sven. Again, who knows if Sven would be willing to come back to TSM or if TSM would want him, but if if Cloud9 does decide to go with King next year, Sven would be available. He would be on the market. TSM would need an 80 carry if they're moving on from Lost. The only thing that sucks about Sven, obviously, is that he would still take up an import slot, but that means they wouldn't be able to get Broken Blade. You know, they could get Broken Blade and Tactical. They couldn't get Broken Blade and Sven because they do have Sword Art. So these are players I think are all unlikely to come to TSM, but I think these could all be possible, and if you put these guys in your lineups, you know, I wouldn't, like, roast you or anything like that. And then kind of the outside chance guys, Viper coming over to TSM, I think is very, very unlikely, but man, that would be hype, and I'm sure TSM is going to reach out to him. And then another one of these options up in the top lane, you know, if TSM does decide to go with an import top laner, Wonder is maybe a guy that could be on the market. You know, it seems like G2 is going to be moving on from him, and where's he going to go? Is he going to end up on another European team, or is he maybe going to want to come to NA and cash out a little bit? TSM Wonder could maybe be an outside possibility, but again, I think those are even more unlikely than these I listed up in here in this category. But again, if you made me choose, if I was the GM of TSM, if I was GM Germ, this is probably the team I would like to see most. I didn't have Treats on any of these lists because I do not think Treats is likely to be coming back to TSM. If I had to put him in one of these lists, I would maybe put Treats down here, but I would really probably even put him below there because I just don't think TSM can possibly move on from Sword Art. But I do think TSM made a big mistake last offseason giving up Treats, and then, you know, he goes on to have an MVP caliber season in Europe for a fraction of the cost that Sword Art would have been. I would love to see Treats return to TSM, and if I was TSM, that was absolutely what I would be doing. But I would go something like this. I think BB, Spica, Power of Evil, Tactical, and Treats would be very, very interesting. Now, this is assuming Tactical is even available, so you might say, you know, that's kind of a not very likely, you know, presumption or anything like that. So if I did have to, you know, play with a import 80 carry, assuming that Tactical is not available, who's really the only North American 80 carry that I would be comfortable with rocking in 2022 on TSM, if you made me, you know, go from there, I would honestly try and go after Crown Shot in Europe, and I would like to see Huni, Spica, Power of Evil, Crown Shot, and Treats. I think European 80 carries are absolutely cracked. I think there are so many 80 carries in Europe that are world class that would be upgrades from so many 80 carries in North America. I think Crown Shot would be a huge upgrade over Lost. Obviously, I would love to see him paired up with Treats. And again, Treats is a free agent, Crown Shot is a free agent, so this is pretty reasonable, I think. And then Huni, Spica, Power of Evil, obviously the same top side we have. There would be 3 residents. I think this team would work well together. I think this would be a TSM team that could compete. Either of these rosters here that I came up with could compete for a LCS title and would go to Worlds and would be an upgrade over this year's team. But again, this lineup over here, if you made me guess, is what I would think TSM is going to be looking like in 2022. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. This was my full breakdown of what I kind of see as the possibilities for this offseason for TSM. It's going to be a very, very spicy, very, very crazy offseason. It's going to be fun to follow, and there's so many different ways TSM could go here. Definitely leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think TSM will do or should do in this coming offseason. Or let me know if you want to see me do a breakdown like this for another team. You know, I'm thinking we could do Cloud9, we can do Team Liquid, we can do G2, we can do Fnatic. There's so many different possibilities, but if you guys want to see it, we'll do it. If this sucked and you guys never want to see it again, then this will be the last video in this series. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys on the next one. But until then, peace.